every $10,000 you paid in federal income tax last year, roughly $400 went to a service you've never used once. Worse, you probably didn't know you were paying for it. Would you be pissed? Because you are paying. Almost everyone is. Well, it's research, government-funded science, about $100 billion a year, producing the most rigorously vetted answers on the planet. And as of this year, it's all free to read. Now, fair pushback, this stuff was written by scientists for scientists. That used to be true. You got it secondhand, filtered through reporters and influencers. But in the age of AI, that barrier is gone. The tools read the dense version, you use the source directly. First time ever that's been possible for everyone. As a learning scientist, I will share a workflow that will truly get you stand out in your work. By the end of this video, you will be pulling from $100 billion a year of research, while everyone else turns in the same average AI output. That's how you stand out. Popular advice right now is just let AI do the research for you, so I tested it. This is NotebookLM's deep research. I gave it our topic, it went out on the web, and came back with 28 sources and this executive summary. And honestly, the summary is pretty good. But look at the source list. Which of these is a landmark study and which is a random blog post? What year is each one from? How many scientists have actually cited it? You can't tell. Not without opening every single link and checking yourself. You're trusting the AI's picks blindly. So keep the summary. It's a decent map. But for those doing the real work, let me show you what I did for a decade as a professional researcher. It takes 5 minutes. Let me introduce a different method that I have created, and I taught this method to many of my clients so they can easily use AI tools to get a good overview understanding of an unfamiliar field using credible sources. Now, this method is called the 3-2-1 method. And we're going to use one free tool, which is called Google Scholar. Today, we are using Google Scholar to find credible sources, especially those peer-reviewed, empirically tested academic papers. We're going to try the same topic. Let's type in Gen AI tools and impact on critical thinking skills. Okay, hit enter. And then you will see the results ordered by relevance and also most importantly, the citation numbers here. If you're unfamiliar with this, is a great metric to tell us, has this paper generated critical impact in its field? Do many other researchers recommend this article? So the 3-2-1 method, number 3, meaning let's select the top 3 most cited papers. Would you want the access to the full academic paper rather than just a summary? So it's important that it gives us free access to a PDF, okay? So just select, in this case, I certainly want this first paper. We can also sometimes try the HTML, open. See, it also has a download PDF button we can do here. And the third one, let's move on to this, the impact of generative AI on critical thinking skills in undergraduates. Now here, I'm looking at a general topic, Gen AI tools on critical thinking skills. If you're more interested in this in a subpopulation such as undergraduates or elementary school students, you add those keywords here. But since I am interested in a general topic, so I am including this paper as well. And just make sure you change the default name of the PDF from this random series of numbers into the title. So impact of Gen AI undergrad. We have completed number 3 and I move on to 2. So 2 here meaning we also need to factor into that there are some recently published papers, they may not have enough time to have accumulated enough citations yet, but perhaps they tapped into more relevant data and excels on the recency scale. So the second method here is, let's go to the time column here. Now here, because we're working with a pretty new topic, and I'd love to include anything in the recent 2 years. Now you can adjust this to 2 or 3 years. So I'm just going to select since 2025. If you have a good reason you want this to include a longer time frame, so feel free to use custom range function. In today's case, I'm just going to click on since 2025. Oftentimes, you might find that there is overlap between the top 3 most cited papers of all time and the top cited articles in the recent 2-3 years. In this case, then you just select the next most cited article. And of course, I would hope you can quickly scan the titles of these papers to find out which one is more relevant to the topic of interest for you. Now here I am looking at the nature.com article. This is a really credible journal. Let's open this one. Now you can just use very simple words so you can remember what this article is later in a list of NotebookLM. And my next candidate is Evaluation with Gen AI used to foster critical thinking in higher ed. Okay, my next candidate is Journal of Cybersecurity Education, Impact of AI Use in Programming Courses on Critical Thinking Skills. Let's download this one. Perfect. In this process, don't overthink it. You're not writing a journal article. This is for us to have a good grasp of a new field so we know which direction we want to go, or if we want to invest more time on this topic after this initial practice. The last step in the 3-2-1 method, 1 really simply means that we also want to include at least 1 review article. Okay. Now some of you may have noticed that in the left-hand column, there is a any type versus review articles type. Now you can try to click on review articles, and it will give you the review type of articles listed in the results. However, the old school method I've used is simply add review, and you see different results by simply adding this new keyword. Let's go back to any type, and once again, you may also find overlap between the review articles listed on the first page and the top cited articles of all time and top cited articles in recent years. We just move on to find the next most cited one. Now I have to explain here why we need review articles here. Well, because meta review and systematic review articles is really a treasure trove where academic researchers, they will survey the entire field and summarize the interesting findings for us. So there's no way why we don't want to tap into these great resources. So I'm just gonna select this one and download a PDF here. And that concludes the 3-2-1 method. Now we're ready to import all the 6 PDFs into a new notebook. Now let's open NotebookLM. Let's name it AI Tools and Critical Thinking. And let's load up the resources by import. I'm click on Upload Files. Great, now I have loaded up our 6 PDFs using our 3-2-1 method. In this newer version of NotebookLM, there's actually a handy feature here. If you click here, auto label sources by topic. So it actually sorted things into 3 different categories. And you see some are labeled into more than 1 category. Of course, if you're unhappy about labels, we can just undo this view. In this case, since we only have 6 different sources, I don't think labeling is going to help us that much, so I'm going to do return to list view. But hey, at least we know there's a feature there that can help us with this function. Now, of course, you can try the suggested questions, but I have 3 questions that I always ask and always deliver something really meaningful, and the responses will push me to think harder and help with my decision making. First question, list 3 most counterintuitive findings. Okay, we got 3. So AI hallucinations can actually sharpen analytical abilities. That is very surprising. Now, see, if you want to have follow-up questions, you may do so One of the nicest features of Google's NotebookLM is all the answers will be based on the actual input resources. If I click on the references, it will give you exactly on which paper and where. And it has a preview of the graph in the paper. Okay. And the second question I usually ask is actually inspired by Charlie Munger's work. What are the irreducible facts versus interpretations? Now, it actually gives a really good explanations of irreducible facts that include empirical data, statistical results, and documented observations and interpretations, theoretical frameworks, researchers' conclusions, subjective student perceptions. Okay, I think this is really nice to have. And the third question that I think more people should be asking is, what patterns emerge that no single source mentions? And obviously, the common question to ask is, what are the patterns that emerge from these 6 sources? I really like this question because usually this type of question easily eat up a graduate student's whole day. But now we can get some really quality answers within a few minutes. When examining these sources collectively, several cross-study patterns emerge that describe a broader evolution in education which no single source identifies in its entirety. Our students' technical proficiency with AI acts as a structural requirement for any higher order cognitive engagement. Very interesting. The global cognitive ceiling. While individual studies report success, the meta pattern across nearly 150 reviewed papers reveal a consistent failure of AI to independently drive higher order skills. So, higher order skills may not be easily cultivated by using AI tools. This is described as the creation of a third space where human and AI intelligence enhance one another through extended cognition. Okay, then the natural next step, depending on the topic of your choice and where you want to go with the material. Perhaps you need to prepare a deck for your team to review, or you're studying a subject that requires you to remember the key facts and patterns. Then you could choose to buy the mind map or flashcards, and they do have the slide deck function. In this video, let's actually try a presenter slides, and we're just going to leave the default prompt here at a high-level outline or guide the audience style. Okay, now we have the slide deck generated. Now you can see it's quite nicely done, although I may prefer a different aesthetic style, but this is pretty impressive and professional looking. Now you can definitely try audio overview. Used to have a 2-person debate style. There's also infographic, mind map, or even a video overview. Since today's example, I am choosing a topic for the human to have a high quality overview. And this is not by definition a comprehensive research project. But if your project requires you to dig deeper and the audio and video format is more helpful, feel free to do so. I hope you really give this 3-2-1 method a try. So we always try to have a bit more control of what we feed into the AI engine before it outputs anything that we can actually use. And this is a way to make sure we generate higher quality output consistently. Now, if you learned anything in this video, please subscribe and I'll see you next time.